If you walked up to Gate 52 at the Portland International Airport on the afternoon of November 24th, 1971, you would have witnessed a completely ordinary, unremarkable scene. It was the day before Thanksgiving, and the terminal was packed with families, students, and businessmen desperate to get home for the holidays. But blending perfectly into the crowd of travelers was a man who was about to orchestrate the single most baffling aviation mystery in human history. A man who would literally step into the clouds and vanish in a thin air, leaving the brightest minds in the FBI chasing a ghost for the next 50 years. This man walked up to the Northwest Orient Airlines ticket counter, handed over $20 in cash, and purchased a one-way ticket for Flight 305, a short 30-minute hop-up to Seattle, Washington. On the ticket, he used the name Dan Cooper. He boarded the Boeing 727, took his seat in the very back row, seat 18C, and casually ordered a glass of bourbon and water. Shortly after takeoff, as the plane leveled out over the gray, rain-slicked clouds of the Pacific Northwest, Cooper leaned across the aisle and handed a small, folded note to a 22-year-old flight attendant named Florence Schaffner. Florence, assuming it was just a lonely businessman handing her his phone number, dropped the note unopened straight into her purse. Cooper leaned toward her, looked her dead in the eyes behind his dark sunglasses, and whispered in a calm, polite voice, "Miss, you'd better look at that note. I have a bomb." Florence's heart skipped a beat. She calmly pulled the note from her purse, unfolded it, and read the neat, handwritten, all-caps lettering. The note demanded $200,000 in negotiable American currency, all in $20 bills, along with 4 parachutes and a fuel truck standing by in Seattle. To prove he wasn't bluffing, Cooper cracked open his black attaché case just wide enough for Florence to look inside. Her eyes went wide as she stared at 8 red cylinders wrapped in thick red wire, attached to a heavy battery. Cooper closed the case, his voice remaining completely smooth, gentle, and polite. He instructed her to walk up to the cockpit and give his demands directly to the pilot, Captain William Scott. For the next 2 hours, Flight 305 circled the rainy skies above Seattle, while federal agents and airline executives frantically scrambled on the ground to gather the cash and the parachutes. What blew investigators away was Cooper's absolute, chilling composure. He didn't panic, he didn't yell, and he even offered to pay for his drink tab. He knew the structural layout of the Boeing 727 perfectly, demonstrating a deep, highly specialized knowledge of aviation mechanics that suggested he was far more than just a desperate amateur. At 5:39 p.m., the plane finally landed at Seattle-Tacoma International Airport. Cooper allowed all 36 passengers to walk off the aircraft in exchange for the heavy canvas bag containing the $200,000 and the 4 parachutes. With the plane refueled, Cooper ordered the remaining crew, Captain Scott, a co-pilot, a flight engineer, and flight attendant Mucklow, to fly the plane toward Reno, Nevada. He gave highly specific, unusual flight parameters. The plane had to fly below 10,000 feet, keep the landing gear down, and maintain a remarkably slow speed of exactly 150 knots. Shortly after takeoff, as the jet entered a violent, blinding rainstorm over the rugged mountain ridges of southwestern Washington, Cooper ordered the entire crew to lock themselves inside the cockpit. At around 8 p.m., a warning light flashed on the pilot's dashboard, indicating that the aft air stairs, the stairs located directly underneath the tail of the plane, had been fully deployed into the open air. The crew felt a sudden, massive change in cabin pressure as freezing 200-mile-per-hour winds howled through the passenger cabin. Captain Scott radioed through the intercom, asking if Cooper needed assistance. The response from the back of the dark, freezing cabin was short, cold, and final. No. Somewhere between Seattle and Reno, over the densely forested, completely unforgiving wilderness near Mount St. Helens, Dan Cooper did the unthinkable. He strapped the heavy bag of ransom money to his waist, donned 2 of the parachutes, walked down the bouncing steel steps into the pitch-black night, and leaped straight into a freezing, blind abyss. When Flight 305 safely landed in Reno hours later, federal agents swarmed the passenger cabin with weapons drawn. But the back of the plane was entirely empty. Cooper was gone. The money was gone. The only things left behind in seat 18C were his black clip-on tie, a mother-of-pearl tie clip, and a half-empty glass of bourbon. The FBI immediately launched NORJAK, the largest, most expansive search operation in American history. Hundreds of soldiers, FBI agents, and tracking dogs combed through the treacherous, muddy ravines of southwestern Washington for months. They searched every cave, every lake, and every square mile of thick forest canopy. But they found absolutely nothing. No parachute canopy, no clothing, and no trace of human remains. It was as if Dan Cooper had dissolved into the atmosphere the second his feet left the metal stairs. Decades passed, and the file grew into a legendary, unyielding monument of American folklore. Over 1,000 potential suspects were investigated, but the footprints never matched. Then, in 1980, a young boy camping with his family along the Columbia River uncovered a rotting rubber band buried in the sand. Inside were 3 degraded bundles of the ransom cash, totaling $5,800. The serial numbers matched Cooper's loot perfectly, but instead of solving the mystery, it only made the void deeper. Why was the money buried miles away from the suspected jump zone? Did Cooper survive the freezing fall, or did the wilderness reclaim him that very night? In 2016, after 45 years of exhaustive, dead-end forensic testing, the FBI officially suspended the active investigation, leaving the file permanently unresolved. Dan Cooper successfully executed the only unsolved skyjacking in commercial aviation history, leaving behind a legacy that continues to baffle scientists, tracking experts, and true crime sleuths all over the globe. He proved that even in a world governed by radar, coordinates, and checklists, a man can still choose to step into the dark and become an eternal mystery. I want to know what you guys think about this legendary jump. Do you think Cooper survived the freezing descent into the Washington wilderness, or did he perish in the woods, leaving the earth to hide his final resting place? Let's talk about it down in the comments below, and please keep the discussion deeply respectful and fun. Thank you so much for watching. Take care of yourselves, look out for one another, and I'll see you in the next deep dive. Bye.